Welcome to Tom's Comedy Club. I am Tom, as you can tell in the title, and this will be comedy. Anyway, that's gone off a tangent that no one expected to go to. Anyway, welcome back to Joking Apart, the podcast where we get comedians, very new comedians, not like the world's biggest comedians, to talk about what it's like on the comedy circuit, because they are the ones that are on the comedy circuit. But like I do with my other interviews on the other channel, so Taskmaster World, where I go down under to New Zealand or go left or right, depends on where you're looking, to Sweden, wherever Sweden is from the UK. I'm not going to attempt this, but we are not doing geography, thankfully. We are now moving from New Zealand, just moving across, either to the left or to the right, from the way you stood. Sat in a chair somewhere else, and this person is also coming from the future, because obviously time zones. We've made it once before, but let's see if this works. Anyway, so my guest known for being a comedian and for appearing on Spicks and Specs as a guest, it's one and only Danielle Walker.
Hello. Was that you really built up the momentum, and so I thought I had to, do it as if I do it if there was a crowd, or something.
Yeah, just imagine the crowd. I do that all the time. I imagine people are listening to me. So let's start at the very beginning. This is a very good place to start. How did you get into this wonderful thing we call comedy?
My cousins told me I should do it, and then I thought it was too self-indulgent, so I didn't do it for a bunch of years. And then, I don't know, I lived in London for a bit, and everybody there seemed to be doing stuff. And I'm from a town where I didn't think you could just do stuff. And so, then when I moved back home, I was like, okay, I'll do stuff too. And I started doing comedy, and then a comic came up to the town I'm from and he headlined, and then he helped me and organized some gigs for me down south in Sydney and Adelaide. And then I went and did those, and I saw how much better you could get if you were gigging every night. And then I moved to Melbourne for a bunch of years, and now I'm in Sydney. And I guess that's how I got started. I never really know, because it was a bunch of years ago, that now I look back at it and think of it in a different light, and like at the time you're like, you just think of stuff in a different way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's see if this next question then works, because now we know how good your memory is. So when you joined, I'm gonna use the word, it might not work this one. When you joined the world of comedy, what was the comedy circuit like at the time you joined?
Well, when I joined in Townsville, it was like maybe 12, 13 people were part of the scene there. And so that was just really lovely and supportive. And it just felt really nice. And then when I moved to Melbourne, again, the same thing. It just felt like everybody was just excited, in the open mic area particularly. It just feels like everybody's so excited to be doing something that they've always wanted to do. And it felt really friendly for me in Melbourne moving there for the first time. But I also think at that time as well, there really weren't many girls around. And I think people were really excited to have another girl around at the time. And now I think as well, the guys who run the scene in Melbourne, they were so supportive of me. And I think they're really supportive of loads of different voices. So I think that was really, it just was a really welcoming place to start out comedy in. I don't know, but I don't know if other people have different experiences, but for me, I loved when I first started, everything was so lovely and nice, and it's still lovely and nice, but I think right at the start sometimes people have different experiences, and mine was really nice. So I don't
and then this is always the thing about it, always gives interesting answers, because no one ever knows the actual answer, which sort of confuses everyone. But when did you feel like you could call yourself a comedian? When could you say to someone, "Oh, I do comedy as a job"?
I don't know. I think it just started to happen. But I guess probably I think when I started to live off comedy, I think that's when I felt like it wasn't I do comedy sometimes every night. I'm a comedian. Maybe I think yeah, when I could live off it, and live off it was is very loose terms. I was very poor.
Yeah. And moving like dramatically forward, what was it like when you appeared on the musical quiz show Spigs and Specks?
I mean, that was the best because I grew up. Spicks and Specks was like a part of Australian culture when I was a kid and growing up. And then it went away for, I guess, like probably 10 years or something. And then it came back. And to be able to do a show that you loved so much as a kid. I mean, I've only done it once per season out of the 2 seasons that have been back, but it's been so fun to be able to do like things you loved as a kid, you know, that sort of stuff. And there's been other things I've done that have been like, oh, I mean, I think there was only 2 episodes before it got cancelled. But there was a reboot. Well, not a reboot. It was just like a Rove Live, Saturday Night Rove, or whatever it was in Australia, Sunday Night Rove. I can't remember what it was, but we had this TV show in Australia when I was growing up called Rove Live, and they rejigged it to try and redo the format, like I guess 15 years after. And it only had 2 episodes, but I got to be on one of the 2 episodes, and that was like a a thing where you get to be like, oh, teenage me would be so happy right now. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to be on the last episode of a downfall of a show.
Well, at least you got to do it. At least
Yeah.
you got to live out a dream. But I mean, Spix, and for anyone that doesn't know, and I don't know what if you've been living under a rock, anyone out there, because I've mentioned it millions of times. But Spix and Specs is basically never mind the Buzzcocks, but they're all Australian, and Adam Hills knows a lot about music. That's all you need.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be the tagline. It's Spix and Specs. No, it's never mind the Buzzcocks, but they're all Australian.
Yes, and I think Myth is like I don't know what she is. She's like a savant for musical knowledge. I've never met anybody more who can just pull stuff out of the recesses of her mind or something like that.
Yeah. And was the studio as nice as it looks like on TV?
Yeah, it was lovely, cool. But it's a beautiful studio at the ABC. It was yeah, it's lovely in there.
And now, what are the things that you can't really tell on the TV? Well, it depends on how big your TV is to be able to notice these things. But what is the buzzer? Is the buzzer a circle, or is it like a lopsided square?
Oh, I think it's a round buzzer that you press. I think it was a round buzzer that we pressed down. It definitely had the like tension on it so that we could really push and feel that we were doing the pushing of the buzzer. I liked it, but I like pushing buttons and stuff.
Yeah, because when I look at it, and it might just be my eyes, I don't know, but I always thought it was some rectangular weird thing that looked incredibly like cardboardy.
I mean, I'd like that more. I think I'd like it if it looked like it was built in like a home shed by an old granddad. It was like we can rig this together using a few odds and ends. I'd love that.
Yeah. And now moving forward to the future, by the time this is being recorded / released, the future counts. I'm gonna say Wednesday, but I'm not going to be confident on that. But because I'm not confident on the date. I'll say Tuesday. No, let's do Wednesday. Let's go with Wednesday. This will work. My analogy, it will work. It will work. Let's say Wednesday. But because the thing comes out on Wednesday, if I'm saying this right. But what was your experience like on Taskmaster Australia, which should be out on the 2nd of February, which should be Wednesday?
It was the best. Well, because I'm like a big Taskmaster fan, and so to be able to do a show that I'd written it down as something I wanted to do years ago, and then when New Zealand first started doing Taskmaster, I was like, oh, I'd love to do it so much. Can I go over there and do it? And then they have like a thing where you have to be like a resident of New Zealand to be able to do the show or something. And I was like, God, oh no, Australia's never going to do Taskmaster. They'll never do it. And then when they did it, and then I was like, oh, maybe I could do maybe a later on season. I wasn't expecting to be able to do the first one. And so, yeah, when I got to do that, that was like the greatest thing ever because, it's like a dream one that you want to do and getting to be in that house and run around. And I just loved it so much.
And you said there that you were a fan of the well, we'll say the British original. We'll say that
Yeah.
because that'll just make this quicker. But this sentence, because it couldn't take forever to me to say this now. But what have you seen any of the other international versions other than the New Zealand version?
Oh, well, obviously I watched the UK version. I watched a few episodes of the Stormmeister. Is that how you say it?
I don't know if that's how you say it, because I've probably been saying it wrong my entire life. But I just call it Taskmaster Denmark to make things quicker.
Well, see, it's from Denmark. I don't know what the language is, so I've just been going like Stormmeister, questioning it. I don't know, but I watched a few episodes of that. But I do struggle with like the subtitle thing because I want to, it's like the nuances of the way people talk sometimes in stuff that really get me excited. So I do struggle sometimes with that, but I love watching them and seeing all the different tasks, and yeah, I just love it. It's just such a great format.
Yeah, and it really is. It's one of those formats that can be repeated everywhere. So the other one that's very similar to not Taskmaster, but into a good format type program is Gogglebox. That's another program that's got the good format because it turns out I wouldn't say for every program, but it turns out the UK is very good at doing a format that works internationally. Because Taskmasters in every country, including Italy, Spain, Belgium, Sweden.
Oh wow! Is it in Italy?
Well, it will be. Alex said it once on a
Cool.
podcast, and then never mentioned it ever again. But so
You're gonna hold him to it.
Yeah, it's gonna happen in this because it's happened in Quebec, which for years I always thought was its own country, but it's actually part of Canada.
Oh yeah, could Catherine Ryan do that one as well?
It depends on if
She's
she
from
can speak
Canada.
French.
She can. She went to the school there. I think that was a French-speaking school or something.
That would make sense. Well, possibly.
I don't know her personally. I just think.
Yeah, she was on the Masked Singer UK like the other day.
Oh really? What did she play?
I think it looked like a possum, but it might not be a possum. It was some weird creature.
But it's hard to tell when they're like fluorescent pink and fluffy. It's not the likeness of an exact possum, I guess.
Yeah, and with you appearing on TV so many times, and some people think that this differently. But do you ever watch yourself back? Do you sit down and go, "Oh, I'm on TV," and watch it?
No, I really struggle with watching myself on TV. I usually don't watch anything back ever because I feel uncomfortable with it. But I think I'm gonna try with this because I loved it so much, and I think like I just want to watch all the tasks again with everybody as well because I just thought it's so much fun to watch yourself do the tasks and other people do the tasks in the studio. You're sort of like not able to pay attention, so I want to be able to watch those again. But usually I can't watch myself on TV because I feel like in my head I'm like talking and it sounds normal and I'm all good, and then when I listen back I'm like there's a lot of space there, you're pausing a lot, your cadence is weird, you kind of seem dumb. I don't know what's going on.
And with Taskmaster, people always like with most. In fact, the New Zealand version is one of the first versions to have a complete original set of tasks. Now the UK version now stealing some of the New Zealand tasks and altering them ever so slightly. But from your knowledge, Do you know if any of the tasks in Taskmaster Australia are original to the Australian version?
I think they all are. I don't think there was any repeated that I thought of as this is repeated. Maybe there might be like a like maybe there might be like a I can't remember what you call them when you bring like a prize task. I think maybe there might be a repeated prize task, but also we did an episode 0, and I think the episode 0 prize task might have been the only repeat
Yeah.
of the other tasks, just to because it was episode 0, it's not being filmed, it's just sort of like for fun, I guess.
Yeah.
To try and get us in the mood. But yeah, I don't think there was any repeated tasks because it was the New Zealand production company, Kevin and Co, who made it, and so a lot of the tasks were written by the same group, and so yeah, I think it was all new, which was fun because I think if not, I would have been like, well, I know where the Satsuma and the sock is.
Yeah, and that's really good because Sam Smith, not the singer,
Yeah.
is very good at writing tasks, and he was the first international person I'd ever actually interviewed anyway for for Taskmaster World, which is my Taskmaster related YouTube channel. Because I would say I'm a little bit obsessed with Taskmaster.
You're in present company,
It's a little bit, and I've made over 2,000 videos on that channel. Yeah, people like listening to me wittering on about the program for quite a while. But when was the first? This is going way. We're going way back in the past. What was the first joke you ever told?
Oh, I think there was one that I stole out of a K-Zone magazine when I was like 8 years old that I told at school to a friend. I think it was like the first time I really liked a joke, and I just remember I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna crush at school, and it was about a teacher, a maths teacher or something. I think it was something about a maths teacher putting heaps of kisses on my exam because it was like X's, so it was like that's wrong, but it was like kisses. It was something to do with that. But again, it was just stolen out of a K-Zone magazine and me reading it directly to my friend, basically being like, isn't this the best joke you've ever heard? And I don't even remember it. It's probably way better than any joke I've ever written.
And speaking of you as a child, what was there any TV shows that inspired you to want to get into this laughing, joking comedy?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if they inspired me to get into comedy, but I love Australiana. Like, I just love I don't know, I just love Australia and the way people talk and the cadence, specifically people from the country. And I think like Round the Twist is maybe the best show ever made. I don't know. I love that show.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
agree with that. The theme tune is so amazing. Asda, which is I don't know how well known Asda is elsewhere, because I don't think Asda is well known in the UK, but they use the theme tune as a Halloween advert.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Even at the like start of it, they're like boom, boom, boom,
They got to the chorus very quickly.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so, going back to way back, going to the future or to the past, depends on what time zone anyone's watching this. But for anyone that could be watching that wants to get into comedy, what advice could you give the people to get into comedy?
I just think you just got to do it. Um, there's like, I mean, you can prepare, but I mean, I did like a comedy course to get started. Weirdly, I know lots of people don't like those, but I think the one I did, I don't know, it was run by like a guy who'd just done like maybe 6 gigs himself because it's Townsville. There's not really that much opportunity to do comedy. And basically, it was sort of just like getting people who wanted to do it into a room together to talk about it for 6 weeks and like write stuff to do in front of each other so that we didn't have to do it on stage to a crowd without having, you know, any practice at all. So it was nice. We just spent 6 weeks practicing in front of each other, adding little jokes, so that when we did our first proper show, and it was like to 100 people, and it was just like a really good experience. And I think that was good because it sort of introduced you to some friends and stuff without the pressure of having to do it on stage. And also where we were each other's crowd, so we sort of all made sure to give the support to everybody, so nobody felt like they bombed in those few first sessions before they went up. But I think like in Melbourne, I watch heaps of people just get up on stage and do their first gigs. And I think if you just put it off or prepare for too long, then you end up just putting it off for forever, and it's never going to be perfect. Like no matter what, I reckon not many people probably tell jokes from their first ever set 5 years in, 10 years in. I feel like, you just got to be like, I'm going to be, even if it goes well, it's probably not that great material at the start. So,
Yeah.
you just got to do it, and then eventually you'll get better.
Yeah. And with your comedy, do you write the stuff and then learn what you've written, or are you one of those people that just walks on stage and blurts out the first thing that comes into your head?
I think I'm a bit of both. I usually write down sort of stories that I want to tell, and I might write down a bunch of different ideas for where I want it to go, or like punchlines for different areas, and then I'll try and remember those and work my way through to those. But then also if somebody, is on stage and they're saying something and it jogs my memory around something else, I'll go up and just talk about that for a bit and then get into what I wanted to say. But it's why I like emceeing sometimes as well, because as an MC, you sort of like want to reference sometimes what's gone on before. And so then it gives more time to just be like, oh, the crowd like me, I'm the host, I can riff about, and that's just going to get them in like a good jokey mood, and then I can tell a joke and bring the next person on or whatever. But I do like both, because I think I don't want to be stuck in any particular way, and I do like to be conversational. I think if I learn stuff too much, it sounds too scripted.
And with your appearances on TV, and with you being well known in the TV world, is there a dream TV show that you want to either appear on or be a part of?
Well, I got to do it. It was Taskmaster. No, I'm not really well known in the TV world. I think I've done a few shows and stuff, but I think I'm still like definitely very early on in that regards. But I mean, Taskmaster is something that I've always wanted to do, so that was definitely a big goal of mine. I think in Australia, I think I sort of want to make my own stuff a bit. There's other shows I'd love to do, but I really want to start to make my own stuff as well. I don't want to really get stuck in that. We don't really have many panel shows in Australia, but sometimes you can get almost just like stuck in panel shows, and then you're not known as like being able to do stuff for yourself maybe sometimes. But I would like to do stuff myself. But I'm going to film something soon, which is like I guess it's like an acting thing. So that will be interesting to see if I can act, I guess.
Yeah, and
But
so would you want to make your own sitcom?
I sort of I'd like to make my own sitcom eventually, but I think at the moment I want to just go document people as they are, because I really like characters, people who are characters. And I think like a lot of people in the country in Australia are very interesting, and I'd like to just go and talk with them and really get their stories and do that, because I don't think there's many left of them, and I don't think they'll be around for too much longer as well, that type of person. And I think they're the funniest person in, like, those people, those old Australian bushies are the funniest people in the world. They're like real life around the twist. So I'd like to go and talk with those people and capture them.
And going back now to your childhood, when you were a child, what did you have an aspiration to go into comedy, or were you set in your ways of doing something else with your life?
When I was a kid, I think I just existed. I don't think I thought about anything other than what was on for today. But I sort of just like enjoyed my I guess I just like had fun. I grew up in the rainforest with my granddad, so not with like I went up there on weekends and school holidays and stuff. I would just go up there and we would just go off into the bush and sort of do stuff. So I think like to me that was the best thing in the world, and it still is. I honestly think that was the best childhood ever, and it's still like the best days in my life. So I think I was just like, well, if I can just keep doing this for forever, this is the absolute dream to be looking at glowworms with my granddad and feeding the fish and I don't know, picking mushrooms and eating them or whatever.
And so in Australia, for anyone that doesn't know, I like to briefly explain my next point. So in Australia, there's something called the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which is basically like a bigger budget version of the Edinburgh Fringe, because the Edinburgh Fringe doesn't get filmed, but the Melbourne Comedy Festival, the main bit does, the bit that everyone sees online. What was it like doing the Melbourne Comedy Festival?
Oh, the gala was so. I mean, for me, I found it quite stressful. I think the next time I do it, I think I'll be a bit chiller and I'll be able to have more fun. I think I was just so stressed because that is something again when you're a kid and you. I mean, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to do comedy, but I watched the galas on TV, and so to do those, I guess there's something in your head that's like, oh no, I'm not as good as the people I grew up on TV watching, or something like that. It was so good to be able to do it and watching it back. I'm like, oh yeah, I did okay because I sort of blacked out. I didn't really remember, but now I feel like for the next ones I'll be a bit chiller
And
because I've got it out of the way the first one.
and would you recommend that for people to do when if they're like if they want to, if like British comedian, would it be something you would recommend people just do in general?
Oh, I mean, outside of because the gala is a completely sort of like it's just like a thing the festival put on, but the rest of it is sort of like I guess it's similar to the Fringe, in terms of like it's most people do if you're doing the full run, it's 22 shows. The Fringe is I think 26 shows, um, and it's it's really I mean I love the Melbourne Comedy Festival. I think it's great. I think if you can do it, you should because it is just the funnest. I think it's the funnest festival, but also that's because I think I know more people in Melbourne, and so the Fringe is so big, and it seems like everybody's doing stuff. And in the Fringe, it sort of like starts, so early in the morning and goes till I mean, the morning again. The shows can go to like 2, 3 a.m. or whatever, and
Wow.
start again at 8, 9 a.m. But in Melbourne, the shows usually there might be kids shows in the morning, but most of the shows sort of start at like maybe 6 p.m. and probably wrapping up around 11, 12 midnight.
Yeah.
And so everybody's sort of out in the one area and it's a bit more condensed. So you're probably going to run into heaps of people but also, I'm assuming that's what it's like in Edinburgh for other people. When I went, I think it's also like I only know really the Australians. And so if we're on at different times, rushing to different gigs, you run into people still a lot, but less than if you were in Melbourne.
Yeah. And in New Zealand, the joke is always that everyone in the comedy circuit knows each other, because there's not that many of them, which I'm yet to find out whether or not that's true. But
I'm
is it like that in Australia? Do you know everyone?
Yeah, I would say it's basically like everybody. Like maybe as you go up as you get into different areas of it, like you might not know all of the open micers or something like that because there's new people every week in comedy. But I think like as you go longer, then everybody who's doing it really properly full time, sort of, or even like I know lots of the open micers still and that sort of thing. But like I would say even Australia and New Zealand, everybody knows each other from New Zealand as well. Because all the New Zealanders, a lot of them come over to Australia to do their shows as well at the comedy festivals. And so, yeah, I would say Australia and New Zealand is like we all know each other, really.
Yeah. And so going back to Spigs and Specs for a little bit, how is your musical knowledge from the get go?
It's really bad. I am really bad with musical knowledge. I used to know a lot about music and then I started comedy and then everything I knew I just completely forgot it all. Like my partner, he'll always say, "Oh, do you know this band? Do you like this thing?" And I'll be like, "I don't know who that is." And then it happened a little while ago. He put on an album, and I just knew every word to every song, but I just couldn't. I just never had no recollection of ever listening to the band at all. But I seem to know it somehow. So I think I don't know. Different things have taken over my brain, and music is one of the things that I've completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and Spicks and Specks is one of those programs where if you don't know too much about music, it's not the end of the world. You're there to have a fun time. You're there to
Yeah,
out yourself. Because
yeah. And I just look at Myth and sort of go, eh,
uh,
and then she's got it sorted, hopefully.
she knows everything. She knows, and when it comes to Eurovision, she knows even more. She's on it like
Oh, really?
yeah, she's on it like a card on it.
Oh my
Like,
God. I want to know what she's forgotten just to remember music stuff.
yeah. Well, that's why the Adam Hills era of Spicks and Specks works a lot better than the 2014 era of Spicks and Specks, where it was
Oh, yeah.
the reboot bit that didn't really work well.
Oh, yeah. I think it was a one season maybe with Josh Earl, and then I think as well as it's hard if you've done a lot of seasons and then you change hosts and everybody in the country is sort of like, we're used to this the way it was. That's a hard job.
Did you know Adam Hills before you went on to Spicks and Specks?
I don't think so. I can't really remember because sometimes I think sometimes it's weird. I think like I think I've met this person, but I can't be sure because I might have just seen them on something, or they might have just been on stage at a gig I was at, but I didn't actually get to talk to them or something. Um, but I don't think I'd met Adam Hills before. If I had, it was only briefly, probably at a gig or two. But I don't think we'd had any. I don't think we'd met before that. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we hadn't met.
Yeah, and
It was a while ago.
what's your favorite round in Spicks and Specks?
Oh, I think I like the one where. I think I like the one where we look at the album covers, and then try and figure out whose album cover is whose. Is that what it's called? I can't remember what all the rounds are. I used to like watching the one where people would sing different songs, but like read the book and sing the songs, but then I had to do it, and then it's like the thing of like it's fun to watch other people do it, and then when you're doing it, you're like, oh, I'm terrified of this.
Yeah, well, because I do I do scouting I do scout, which is very fun. And I used to be in something called Explorers, which is the thing you do before you're in.
Oh, Scout! I was a Scout too. I got my BP Scout medallion.
Well, I'm not. Well, I should know, but I probably don't know. But in the UK, we have something called Explorers, right? And it's before you turn 18, so it's from like 14 to 18. But I've probably got that bit wrong. Anyway, so I
No,
did.
you got Scouts, Venturers, Explorers,
Well,
Rovers?
Explorers
Or...
are adventures. The different
Oh,
brands.
okay, yeah.
They renamed them not that long ago because we thought, well, they can't go on adventures, but they'll explore, which we don't know much of. Anyway, so I did for my last night, because there's a whole story to it, but I won't go into too much detail. But for my last night, I did a thing where I merged together different rounds from different panel shows to make one big panel show. And one of the rounds was the whatever it's called, the book round in Spicks and Specks. So I found a Nigella cookbook, or whoever's popular at the time, and I wrote down all these songs that I thought were really well known, and I got the person to do it, but they didn't know any of the songs, so I just take him into the corner of the room, and quietly but firmly. I had to tell him what the answer was. I had to hum him the song because he had no idea what the song was, even though it was like "We Will Rock You" by Queen or "Agadoo" by Blacklace. And the most
I
obvious.
don't know Agadoo by Blacklace, but the names of stuff. You'd have to sing it for me, and then I'd be like, oh, yeah, I get it.
So "We Will Rock You" the one with the clapping and the stamping.
Yeah, you didn't even need to do the book. You can just do the...
Well, he didn't understand that either. And so I do think Spicks and Specks works in multiple different formats, whether or not it's on TV or not, because you can humiliate people very quickly and very easily.
Yeah, no, it is it's a good format.
Yeah, it is, and so is Taskmaster, because it works. So people when it got announced were had their own theories and thoughts on who should be host. But is Tom as good of a host as he is on Hard Quiz?
I think so. I think he's just as hard as he is on Hard Quiz. I think he's great, and I think the duo between him and Cashman is lovely. I think that they've got like a good dynamic, and I think Cashman is going to be. I think people are going to really like Cashman in the sort of sidekick role. I think he's got his own twist on it, and I think he's. I don't know. I don't want to, step over any toes or anything, but I feel like he's like got a sweetness as well that is like, different to Alex, but similar as well, where you can see sometimes he's like trying not to break, but
Yeah.
he's really struggling to not, uh, you know, give in to his emotions. And I think that's like really nice to see because as well, like, and Tom's the same. I don't know. I want to call them Big Tom and Little Tom, but I don't know if that's right. But Tom Gleason, like he's also like the same. Like he's very harsh, and he's extremely harsh. But occasionally he can't help but just bursting into laughter. And that's not the same way that Greg does. Because in my mind, Greg's a big silly boy. I think Tom's just like really trying so hard not to laugh and be the big king of Taskmaster, and then he can't help it sometimes. And I think that's a really nice dynamic for people
And
to watch.
and with the show coming out, I'm gonna say it again, Wednesday, but that might be wrong. How many episodes are we gonna enjoy?
I think there's 10. I think 10 episodes. Yeah, I think 10 episodes. We did 2 episodes a day for 5 days. So yes, we've
So there we
got
go. You get to look forward to Taskmaster Australia for 10 weeks. Oh,
10 weeks. Yeah, that's exciting because obviously, I think the first few seasons of UK Taskmaster, I think it was like 6 episodes or something like that. Was it
well, I think the first series was 5, and then it went to 6, and then
five?
it went to
Yeah.
10. Then all the people that had less episodes were really angry because it was.
Yeah, I was like thinking that. I was like, oh God, you'd be so upset because it's such a fun thing to do.
That's why in Denmark they're doing a Losers of Losers mini series where 4 episodes,
Oh,
and it's people that never won any episodes of their own series.
that's really fun. That's really fun. So you can be like the only time you ever get to do Taskmaster again potentially is if you are the winner or the loser.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fun.
and hopefully we get a version where every host and every system comes together to create a version, because they all went to, I think it's like Spain or something together. All the
Ooh.
taskmasters and all the assistants all just stood near a massive duck on a beach talking to each other.
Oh, that's really fun. Oh, I wonder what that would be. What would that be? Some sort of Olympics for.
It'd be the Taskmaster Olympics where they have 2 problems. One, the amount of people, and two, the language barrier.
Oh yeah,
Not all of
that's going to
them
be tough.
speak English, and so you could do a task where you have to try and work out what everyone's actually saying.
Yeah, that is a tough one. That really is just good for people who have a few languages, and one of them has to be some sort of Latin based one somewhere in there.
Yeah, and there was an episode in the Danish version where the Swedish Taskmaster assistant appeared in the Danish version, where they had to work out who the Swedish Taskmaster assistant was. And so,
Oh,
yeah. So it's when they have Fred the Swede on the UK version, it's
yeah.
basically that, but it's David Sundin who is the Swedish Taskmaster's assistant, and the Danish contestant from the Danish version have to work out who David is.
Oh wow! So that only works if they haven't seen the show as well.
Yeah,
Then
but it's also easier because if you know Danish, you very much can pick up Swedish very quickly because it's not that different. It's
yeah,
it's ever so similar. As
I would be very bad with that.
so would I. And so coming towards the end of this lovely interview, where do you get your inspiration from when you're writing or performing your comedy?
I don't like live. I think I just like enjoy what like I just laugh in my day-to-day life and then go, oh, maybe that's something. Or if I think about a bigger topic that I kind of want to talk about, then kind of like theming shows is kind of easier because then you've got a whole topic that you can just think about and then think about all the things you've ever found funny about that thing or how it relates. If you're thinking about a show, but just for bits, I think I'll just be like laughing about something that's happened and then that will become a bit, I guess, because I'll be like, oh, weirdly, I've been thinking about that a few times. I've clearly started to tell friends about that story. That probably means I'm thinking about it. It probably means it should be a bit, okay, stop telling your friends about it because they'll think you're a psycho when they just see it on stage and then just write it out. Or sometimes it'll just be like, little jokes might just be things I've said in conversation and then people will be like, you know, you got to write that down. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'll write it down. Bye. And then sometimes they're lying to you and you should never have said that on stage ever.
And do you often regret the things you say on stage?
Sometimes, yeah. I think there's like just different things where I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'll say that. And then, 3 years later, you're like, oh, why did I say that? That's ridiculous. Or I think one time I'm not allowed to say my dad's banned me. I'm not allowed to say his partner's name on stage. Even though I never said anything rude about her. I just said her name, and my dad was the butt of the joke, really, because of something he'd said at an event that we all went to as a family. But then he banned me from saying her name on stage. So I guess I regret that I did that. But also, I am mostly just angry at the person in the crowd who filmed it and put it online because nobody ever would have found out because I just sort of set it off the cuff. It was just like a once off that night thing. And now I've got that. I could have, gotten away with potentially saying her name because she's got a perfect comedy name. Like I never change names really in stories. I just keep them the same because it's easier for me. If not, I'll mess it up. So, yeah.
It's like the
Perfect name.
it's like the Scooby Doo thing. You wouldn't have got away with it if it wasn't for that person that was filming it on the phone. Urgh.
Yes, exactly. Comedy should be ephemeral and nothing should be recorded so I can say whatever I want
Yeah,
about my family.
and so there we go. There we go. And that's a good segue. So now this is the point in the interview where you get to promote whatever you've got coming up or anything you've got that you want people to know about.
Well, I guess Taskmaster is probably the thing. Taskmaster is really the only thing at the moment that I can promote because the other thing I'm about to start working on probably won't come out for another year or so. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about it. So, Taskmaster, I think the 2nd of Feb, it starts on Channel 10 for anybody else. I don't know if it will be on the Taskmaster app or not. I assume so, but who knows? Sometimes that stuff takes a while to be uploaded. But I don't know if you're supposed to say anything, but VPNs are around, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Channel 10 would love the clicks, so
Well, hopefully it does get added to the Taskmaster app because here in the UK we can only watch series 1 to 10, no 1 to 11 of the UK series on the Taskmaster app.
yeah. Well, Weekend in Australia, we used to only have like 2 seasons on a binge and a few on SBS, and then like we'd have, I guess, the same as the Taskmaster app for you, but now every season has just recently been uploaded to an Australian streaming service called Binge. So that's awesome that we can watch any UK series. I think all the way up until season 14 like is all out on there. But season 15 starts soon, right? Or
We don't know. Well, I would say yes, but we don't. We're assuming March probably, but it's not confirmed nor denied. And but the Taskmaster app, the Taskmaster Super Max Plus, the Super
yeah.
that around the world has the Swedish version, the Danish version, the Norwegian version, but in the UK we only have the UK version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's quite weird, and apparently it's due to rights issues, but
Oh, yeah. I assume that eventually they'll all be on there.
yeah, we would hope that would we would that would mean that Alex would get even more money. No, I'm not assuming it.
You should personally message him and say we need to get these rights issues sorted, and send him a photo of you in your suit, and say I can sort anything you need, paperwork wise. I've got it covered.
Yeah, I look like a lawyer. I can't. Well, I can't speak Norwegian or Swedish. I can't speak any language. I know it looks like I can, but on on the contrary, I can barely speak English, let alone another language. Uh, so there we have it. Another wonderful episode of just joking apart. I was about to say the name of a radio panel show there. Just a minute. What a way! What a way! See, my words have lost from me. So, where can you see more of my interviews? Well, to on the contrary where I normally say blah 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 and blah, well blah 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 and blah, I've added another one. So the names are Tom Mason is for Doctor Who, the Tom's Comedy Club is for comedy, ha ha ha. Taskmaster World is for anyone that was in international version of Taskmaster, from any version. If they can speak English, that would help even more. And you can now see interviews on Reality Show World, where I interview people from Hunted to The Traitors to The Mole to The Apprentice to the Lego Masters to the other program that I probably forgot, Bake Off, that to Bake Off. All of them. Imagine I've got 12 arms or whatever the number was. I can't count at this moment in time. But yes, so there should be more interviews coming from me very soon across many channels, including the Weird Side. I completely forgot that. But remember, no,